All right, welcome folks to another edition of WSB Student Spotlight. Special edition here because joining Matt Mankiewicz and myself, Ken Furman, is Ranae Ward from Stony Brook Women's Soccer. Ranae, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Good, excited to chat with you because really we're not going to be talking a lot about soccer, more so kind of what's been going on from the student athletes perspective over the last month and a half ish, since everything's gone down. So obviously, first things first, Stony Brook announcing it's going to join the CAA starting next season. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really good move for the university, academic-wise, athletics-wise. So like I fully support the move that the university is making to the CAA. Yeah.
And obviously, following that, there was, a big news coming out of that in terms of the America East and them not allowing the remaining programs in action, their seasons, to compete in the postseason. Obviously, what were your thoughts on that?
Uh Honestly, I think it's really unfair that they're punishing these student athletes for a decision that played no part in. I know only a few other conferences in the country, including the CAA, have this bylaw. I think they should find other ways of punishing the university itself and just allowing the student athletes to play because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, and in your case too, what was the reaction like? 'Cause obviously, being amongst the other student athletes as well, what was it like when the news dropped that hey, Stony Brook's going to the CEA, and then the following week when all of it was announced that hey, it turns out these teams, these programs like basketball, swimming and diving, baseball, softball might not even get the chance to compete for a conference title.
Yeah, so I mean, when the announcement was made that we're moving to the CAA, I'm sure a lot of people are like excited about it, just as I am, because like I said, it's a really good move for the university. But when they announced that some of our student athletes won't be able to compete, there was a lot of anger, confusion, disappointment. Um, but like I said, like the student athletes did not have anything to do with the decision, so it's kind of like a bomb drop that we won't be able to play. So it's just a lot of disappointment, I'd say, in the America East, enforcing that bylaw.
Yeah, and the SAAC as well, Stony Brook wasted no time kind of, getting everyone together, of course, hosting those meetings which you were a part of. What was said, what went down, in those meetings, and what do you think came out of it that, the program looked at, I guess, to build towards or to start competing against the postseason ban?
I mean, in the meetings, we just tried to put out a message that this is about the student athletes. Like you need to look at it from the student athlete perspective, not the business perspective of things. Like that's what we're trying to appeal to the people that made this decision. Because at the end of the day, like they preach that they want to care about the student athletes, our mental health, and so on and so forth. And they're not doing that because we have student athletes here that are hurting and they're disappointed that they can't play. And we just want them to stand up for what they've been preaching over the past however many years.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think one of the really weird things about this too, and I know Matt was the one that brought it up originally, was when the move happened, first off, it was unanimous from the rest of the conference that they all voted to ban Stony Brook from the postseason play. This is including Hartford, who previously announced at the end of the year that it's going to move to D3. So, I mean, what was the reaction like? And obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of outrage, just Hartford, especially, siding with the rest of the conference.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm still a bit confused by that. Like we've been having these conversations almost every single day, and we're just like, what about Hartford? Why were they given an exception and not us? And on top of that, why aren't they advocating for us, even though they were given the go ahead to play in their conference championships? Like we need an explanation about Hartford because yeah, it's just very confusing to me and all the student athletes here.
Yeah.
Renee, also a couple of things that really we found confusing too is that Binghamton and Albany didn't side with Stony Brook. And we've all joined the America East at the same time 20 years ago. And and we thought that when Stony Brook made a move to the CAA, that might pave the way for them to go along with us eventually. And now we don't know what the relationship is.
Yeah, like I said, it's just completely baffling that they've voted against our student athletes in that way. I mean, we've supported the America East through everything in our time in the America East, and it's just heartbreaking to know that they don't want to see us like succeed as student athletes in this championship season that's coming up. It's disappointing, it's saddening. I just honestly don't understand it.
Yeah, and on that topic as well, it's it was really weird, and especially because with at least speaking of other student athletes, they have established friendships even through these rivalries with other opponents on other teams. Have you had that? What has that, I guess, relationship been like with other teams since the news came out? Like, have other student athletes reached out to you guys and girls and said, "Hey, we're so sorry this is happening. We think this is messed up"? Has it just been radio silence from the part of other student athletes in other programs and conferences, or rather, teams?
Yep, radio silence from student
Wow.
athletes. Haven't heard anything from them. It's just very weird. I'll be honest with you, it's very strange that they're not supporting other student athletes.
One of the reasons, well, actually, no official reason other than the vote has really come out of the America East, but the arguments have been going back and forth. And one in particular was that, number one, that's the rules, that's the way it is, live with it. And number two, when Boston University left, they were subject to this sanction, yet Hartford was not. And I'm sure, BU, I think it was in 2014, and I think it was just before Sean Helbin took over as AD.
Yep.
But the Hartford one, I think, is the one that sticks in everybody's throat because they're leaving too, and both were downgrades. I mean, BU went from America East to the Patriot League, and of course, Hartford's going to D3. So, what was the reason? And the only word that keeps coming up over and over again, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure the athletes feel the same way, is spite. Stony Brook has an opportunity to win in every spring sport it participates in, and now we're out of the way.
Well, first of all, I'll say that when BU left, our AD wasn't here and our president also was not here yet. So they weren't the ones that agreed to this bylaw. That, by the way, we've been trying to change after the situation with JMU before we decided to switch to the CAA. So it's not like a new thing that we're fighting for. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, the bylaw does not state, it doesn't differentiate where you're moving to. It could be D3, D2, D1, a lower conference, high conference, it doesn't matter. The bylaw states that when you're leaving, the presidents have a vote when you'll become ineligible to play. Like, they could decide a date, and they chose to make us ineligible the day that they voted. So you could put it anywhere you want to. The fact that they let Hartford play and they're not letting us play, it's unfair.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. And you brought up some really interesting points too, especially on the JMU front, because it was a really interesting insight there where, you all felt that, this was messed up even before, you knew of, or Stony Brook even decided it was going to make the move to the CAA. Has, the SAAC or other Stony Brook administrators reached out? And I guess what connections have been built there with JMU and Stony Brook, because you two are going through similar issues right now?
I think there was a joint statement put out with Stony Brook, the University of Illinois Chicago, and JMU, requesting to have the bylaw removed from all the conferences that have it. But that was really it, to be honest. We've built a relationship with the University of Illinois Chicago because they went through a similar thing a couple of weeks ago, and they had their decision overturned. So we've had conversations with them about how they went about it, and we've been trying to implement what they did so that we could have the same outcome that they did.
What did you notice that they did that you feel worked? Was it just a school name or the program, or do you feel like there was a certain action or two that they really took that kind of changed the conference's mind?
I think just the fact that they all came together as a department, all the student athletes, they immediately came together and they all fought for one cause, and they really just went after their conference. And I mean, at that point, I feel like the conference was backed into a corner. They didn't have a choice but to give them their seasons back.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because it kind of was a perfectly to what's coming up tonight, there's this big senior night planned for women's basketball. It's likely going to be their final game against the American East rival. Definitely against American East rival, probably against the American East opponent for a long time. And there's definitely been, murmurs happening that there's a student athlete rally planned for the game where you're going to fight on behalf of not only the women's team, but every program affected by this. Now, what are your thoughts on it? How do you feel the participation is going to show up tonight?
I'm really excited for it. Like I've been saying, like we just want to come together and fight for these winter and spring sports because they've worked so hard to get to where they are, especially that women's basketball team. Like I really feel for them after what happened during COVID. They
Mhm.
couldn't play in their last championship game because COVID hit. But yeah, I'm really expecting a pretty good turnout because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want our athletes to compete. We all want to see them, win and like just thrive. And that is just being taken away from them. So we're going to fight in any way that we can for them to have that.
Have people like, let's say, the AD Sean Halbert or anybody else in administration with athletics or even administration of the university, given you any hints of what they were up to try to get this decision reversed, whether they were, considering legal action or any other means of trying to overcome it?
They haven't really shared much with us. I'm not really sure what they did behind the scenes. I'm sure they probably weren't allowed to tell us. So yeah, but I'm 100% sure they're working really hard on their end to make this decision be overturned.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're all hoping for, and I think this student athlete rally get together is a great idea for that. And how do you feel? Because before the pandemic, just being reporting on the scene, especially attending those men's and women's basketball games, student athlete population was always out on full front. This is every program, soccer, track and field, swimming and diving, doesn't matter. How do you feel like that attendance is going to be now?
I mean, especially in the game tonight, I think it's going to be very good because, like I said, we all want to support our women's basketball team tonight, especially because they're senior night, um, and so that we could help them get their conference championship back.
That's another thing that we're obviously going to ask around, other people too, because Stony Brook technically doesn't have a conference affiliation right now. Because I mean, what's the main reason you're in a conference is to participate in AQ, but without that, and everybody's saying that the Stony Brook is eligible for at-large bids in the NCAA. What is the attitude right now? I mean, you had the opportunity to play for the American East Championship because you're in a fall sport, but what are the athletes affected now been thinking? I mean, do they hope for regular season championship and then get a shot, let's say the WNIT or an at-large bid? Has anybody been talking to you about that?
I honestly haven't heard much, but I know the players, they just want to beat every single opponent they come across in the regular season, just to like make a statement that we know what we're capable of, regardless of if we play in the championship or not. Like, I'm going to show you that I'm the best here. That is the attitude that our student athletes have.
It's that's definitely, I think, the most impressive part to me because it's really tough. I think let's say you put an average person in that situation where it's like your best shot at getting to the NCAA tournament is taken away from you. I don't think too many folks would really step up and keep giving it 100%. But for the most part, we've really seen a lot of these programs still maintain a high level of play, even since the ban was announced. I mean, it's incredible that you student athletes are still going in there and giving it your all. Even if the road to any tournament is almost out of sight.
Yeah, it's honestly really impressive, the attitude that they have. And I fully support them. I honestly just feel so bad. I really wish that this could become overturned for them because
Yeah.
you just see how hard they work every single day. So yeah.
Matt and I as well. But I think what y'all are doing, especially just someone like yourself, Ranae. You obviously, as Matt said, played in the fall. You're currently in the off season. You're a senior now too, so you have you could graduate at the end of the semester, but it's you feel very passionate about this, and more so than a lot of other student athletes because you've been so vocal about it on social media. Telling everyone on campus, off campus. Obviously, getting interviewed here. I mean, what was it like, for you? And just, I guess, really, what is it about the situation that makes you feel so passionate about what's going on right now?
I mean, it's been like a few of us that have been working on it really hard, like, and it's full student athletes as well. We just, like you guys said, like we had the opportunity to compete, and like we worked hard for it, and we got that opportunity, and we see these student athletes, these spring sports, the winter sports, they work just as hard as we do, and they're getting this taken away from them. Like we honestly just, it's just so unfair in itself. Like we don't want to, we're seeing it happen to our student athletes. We never want to see it to happen to another student athlete in any conference ever again. So even if we don't get it overturned for us, like we just want the bylaw removed from all conferences, period. Like this should never affect a student athlete in any way ever.
Feel for you, and I think honestly, Matt and I would agree in that. Just it's yeah, I would say just it's really weird. I think has been the common word, but it's just flat out just messed up. Just to have, especially as you said, the opportunity for teams in the fall to potentially or to compete for the conference title, and in the spring, that same opportunity is not there. We've already seen swimming and diving get cost that opportunity, and it'd definitely be a real shame for the programs now, like basketball, especially that women's program, how good they've been this season to, not even get a chance to defend their 2 consecutive championships they've won.
Yeah. It's honestly just a shame that they don't get to compete. Like, why would you not want this team represent you in the NCAA? Granted, they won the conference championship. Like,
No,
they've just been incredible.
agree with the role they've been on. And just on that too, because it is a senior night, and we have 3 seniors on that team: Mackenzie Boucher, Leah Mori-Wool, India Pagan, 3 graduates rather. Yeah, so this is it's pretty much likely their last game, at least in the regular season in collegiate play. What is that mentality like, especially entering an already emotional day, now adding another layer on top of it as a senior?
I mean, I'm sure they just have the attitude to just show the entire America East, like, how good we are. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like they're just gonna go out there and play the best game they ever played in their life. Just to like make a statement to the America East.
That has to be the most disappointing thing of all, that the book is closed on it, and now we're just stuck having to live with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're still gonna keep fighting for it. Like, even if the board of presidents say that they've made their final decision, we're still gonna keep fighting for our student athletes, and we're gonna keep fighting to have the bylaw removed from every conference that has it. Either way, like the fight is not over just because they say that it's over.
I'll wrap it up with this. Was just looking forward to next season, start of the CAA. With all of this impacting all the programs, how do you feel each program, especially women's soccer, how do you feel that's going to impact their mindset heading into next season, their first season in CAA play?
I mean, it's exciting just having new opponents to play against. Like, I would be so excited to just dive right into it. Like, I'm so excited for my team and all the other teams that are gonna play next fall.
Yeah, there's a big rivalry too between Stony Brook and Hofstra that's going to get renewed.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're definitely looking forward to that one.
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, Ranae, thanks very much for joining us today on the sports section. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.